When a new story takes hold, fans are astounded by how Isley's memories may be altered. Interpretation took the place of context, reminding others that reality TV and public appearances are edited moments rather than complete truths. Some fans retaliate. They captive to extrapolate current rumors onto prior actions. However, their voices were unable to match the more dramatic, louder interpretations. Scandal spreads more quickly than caution. Online rumors said that the emotional toll was starting to be discussed on its own, not because anyone could verify it, but because people evaded it. It was assumed that there was stress. It was expected to cause distress. Expressions such as overwhelm and barely surviving circulated openly, repeated without confirmation. Repetition led to familiarity, and familiarity led to belief. Once again, the family's perception was split. Some witnessed a woman being unfairly singled out by rumors. Others observed a person whose quiet revealed more serious problems. Neither side could substantiate their claims, but they both talked confidently. As disputes intensified, emotions ran high, and the human cost was frequently overlooked. As night fell, the narrative didn't slow down. Rather, it found a rhythm. There were new posts. Old one comment reiterated the same issues. There was nothing new added. The feeling of urgency persisted. People were waiting for an event. I'm not sure what that something ought to be. The idea that the rumor no longer required confirmation unnerved a lot of onlookers. It was moving forward. Instead of information, it thrived on attention. Every response reaffirmed its existence, making it more difficult to deny and simpler to acknowledge as fact. The speed at which this shift can happen astounds fans. Some apparently regretted taking part in the speculation in private conversations. They wondered if expressing concern had become harmful. Others disregarded the concerns, claiming that public personalities are subject to criticism. The discussion exposed a more profound disagreement about accountability and compassion. By the end of the day, the purported claim was more about its effect than its source. Relationships were being assessed. Decisions made in the past were being evaluated. There was speculation on futures. Nothing was based on verification. However, everything felt significant. The story hung in the air like a question, unsolved. Nobody was able to respond. And as individuals logged out and others signed on, the cycle persisted. Propelled not by fresh information, but rather by the weight of fear and belief that had already taken hold by the next day. The conversation's tone had shifted once more. The conversation was no longer solely motivated by shock or incredulity. It was anticipation. No one was inquiring as to whether anything had occurred. They wanted to know what the repercussions would be. The speed at which a rumor can go from potential to assumed outcome without ever reaching. Confirmation astounds fans. Those closest to the scenario appeared to feel cornered, according to online discussion. Every choice appeared to be incorrect. Speaking up could exacerbate the narrative. Silence allowed it to spread unfettered. There were rumors that even neutral gestures were being misinterpreted. A delayed reaction turned into avoidance. A composed demeanor was called denial. In a neutral space, nothing was left. As the story developed to include motives, feelings ran hot. Why would someone make such a claim at this time? Who gains from it? Some said it was an effort to take back control of a situation that seemed unattainable. Others contended that it was the predictable outcome of long-buried unresolved stress. Curiosity was replaced by certainty and inquiry by speculation. Supporters, it was uncomfortable to watch the drama play out. Compared to ordinary celebrity rumors, the story felt more weighty. It discussed vulnerability, trust, and health topics with real-world implications that go beyond amusement, reminding others that repeating unsubstantiated medical claims might be harmful. Other posters begged for moderation. Repeated online debates revealed that those voices were frequently muffled by louder reactions seeking answers. Many now saw everything else through the prism of the husband's purported views. Some said it had to be true if he believed it. That reasoning gradually gained traction. Fans are astounded by how authority is given based on proximity rather than proof. despite the fact that believing is not proof. Tension increased as discussions became more heated. More to Tamar, her previous candor with emotional difficulties was revived. Videos were circulated without any context, presented as evidence that she had been bearing a secret load the entire time. Supporters retaliated, claiming that vulnerability shouldn't be used as a weapon after the fact. Nevertheless, those videos kept going around, transformed to suit the new story. Health-related discourse grew more irresponsible. Words were used haphazardly. Words were used haphazardly. There was no explosion in the room. It was not need to. People were uncomfortable because the occasion went by so quietly, almost too softly. Whispers that are already circulating on social media claim that something extremely disturbing was uttered in private. Not on camera, not at a press conference, but in an environment where words are meant to be powerful. Timelines started to change in a matter of hours. Voice notes were shared, screenshots surfaced, and all of a sudden, an unplanned narrative began to take shape. Supporters claimed that there was no yelling or mayhem that caused the shock. It originated from the suggestion that a private claim, purportedly related to Tamar Braxton's marriage, had crept into the conversation and would not remain there. Iteration of the rumor ring up. Mendeecees. Additionally, it was a company accusation that caused men unsure of whether or turn away. Online rumors claim that Tamar's spouse is now being described of an assertion that altered everything. Something he reportedly told an individual, but it was public. As it is being reiterated, the accusation isn't merely concerning betrayal. It has to do with health, terror, and consequences that are said to go much beyond feelings. The tone of the talk immediately changed when that perspective was brought up. The speed at which worry gave way to panic has stunned fans. Discussions in groups erupted with incredulity. People repeatedly asked the same questions in the comment areas. Is this true? Why right now? And why does it feel so weighty if it's not true? Some tweets went so far as to say that purported reports were cited in the same sentence, which caused a surge of fear and pushed the tale into perilous terrain. People's emotions were running high as they started making connections that might not belong together. We viewed old interviews again. They reinterpreted moments from the past. Denial began to seem quieter than silence. One particular element persisted throughout the discourse as the rumor grew. Claims that whatever caused this storm had affected Tamar's well-being. Nothing has been verified. There is no formal statement. However, the internet is prepared, considering this as a chapter that has been opened, whether or not anyone desired it to be. Once a story like this gains traction, it doesn't wait for the facts to catch up. Long before anyone realized, the atmosphere had changed. Discussions that had before been informal became cautious, almost calculated. As though individuals were worried that speaking the wrong thing out would increase its potency. Online rumors claim that the conflict didn't begin with a public announcement or headlines. It started out gently, with discreet conversations and nervous glances that hinted something had gone wrong in the background. The atmosphere surrounding Tamar's inner group felt different and heavier, according to fans seeing from a distance, as if a truth was being avoided. Instead of being addressed, it is said that those closest to the issue were the first to notice the change. No one responded to the messages. Plans were delayed, and the silence was tense rather than serene. There were rumors that Tamar's spouse at the time was struggling with what he thought he had discovered, something that changed the way he perceived their relationship. It was a belief that became ingrained in his head and would not go away, not evidence that was made public or a confession that was captured on tape. Everything else appeared to fall into place for him once that belief took root. Discussions stated that this was a steady burn rather than an abrupt outburst of rage, according to people spreading the tale online. Repeated questions were posed, frequently with ambiguous responses. Once disturbed, trust allegedly became challenging to repair. He reportedly started confiding in a small group of people about a problem that he believed went too far for him to ignore. The narrative that is being shared portrays it as a time when suspicion solidified. into certainty even in the absence of verification. And feelings were running hot in that area between uncertainty and conviction. Whether they wanted to or not, friends and family were allegedly drawn into the conflict. Some encouraged composure, indicating that rumors have the power to warp reality. Others, on the other hand, allegedly urged him to follow his gut and cautioned that disregarding warning signs could result in more serious regret. The speed at which sides were drawn in private, long before the general public realized something was off, astounds fans. The family was split because of what was thought to be true rather than what had been demonstrated. The situation became more sinister as the story progressed. Online conversations started bringing up purported health-related reports, which are consistently presented as unsubstantiated, frequently enough to instill panic. These reports were allegedly discussed in private and were never meant to be heard by the general public. Whether the notion was accurate or not, it changed the narrative from one of emotional betrayal to one of far greater concern. Curiosity was almost instantly replaced by concern. Supporters reported feeling uneasy as they watched the rumor develop. This was about well-being and irreversible effects, not gossip or drama. Videos of Tamar grinning on camera from the past were abruptly reinterpreted as forced. Vulnerable moments from earlier interviews were recounted, but they were now presented as red flags. The speed at which conjecture may transform empathy astounds fans. Online accounts claim that Tamar was not speaking out about any of this as it spread. Turned into was in ways. Some saw it as a sign of refusal to interact. For others, it was proof significant was going on behind closed doors. The lack of explanation fill in the blanks. Imagination. The husband's response, according to others recounting the tale, was not a performance. They claimed that because it was secret and who heard about it found it more credible. Dramatic scenes were not described. There were no publicly leaked yelling matches. Rather, there was a sense of separation and isolation, as if something essential had changed and was difficult to fix. One suspected that every recollection is tainted by betrayal, and supporters think that's what took place. Days went by, yet the rumor persisted. It expanded, more rich and intricate. Retelling provided more context, which was occasionally contradicting and occasionally supportive. No one could provide an explanation for the claims made by some that talks with legal advisors had occurred. Why or for what reason? Others brushed that off as hyperbole, claiming that the internet has a tendency to turn everyday disputes into disasters. Nevertheless, the narrative remained unresolved. Fans who could relate to Tamar's struggle on a personal level were quite emotional. The idea that her name was being linked to such grave accusations without proof infuriated a lot of people. Others voiced anxiety, concentrating on the health consequences that were being discussed in whispers. Discussions about accountability, privacy, and the price of celebrity erupted in the comment sections. The family was split between supporters and detractors, both domestically and in the eyes of the public. The timing of the rumors made the situation much more worrisome. Observers wondered why they would come to light after all this time. Unresolved issues have a tendency to reappear at unexpected times, according to some. Others thought that someone was purposefully feeding the story, releasing pieces to maintain focus. The outcome was the same regardless of the reason. Certainty became elusive as tension increased. Individuals pretending to have insider information on a struggling household. Fragile, yet not chaotic. The kind of setting when every statement seems risky and it feels heavy to be silent. These stories indicate that Tamar's emotional condition was a cause for concern. Not because anything has been proven, but simply because stress may be detrimental. Words like nearly couldn't cope and occurred in posts that were barely hanging on. Couched all the time. Never as truth, but as worry. The speed at which a narrative based on purported interactions might seem authentic astounds fans. Rumors gain credibility via repetition, even if they are unfounded. The notion that something extremely intimate had been discussed, even in secret, was sufficient to persuade many that the harm had already been done. One aspect of the story stayed constant, even if Trusty Rhodes' explanations were unable to keep up with everything. Nothing had been verified. No direct quotes, no documents, and no statements. However, belief spread more quickly than confirmation. Instead of responding to the story's facts, they responded to its emotional truth, assurance regardless of the evidence. Feelings of vulnerability, fear, and betrayal resound. For many, the rumor had evolved from a question to an assumption by the time it peaked for the day. The hush persisted not because fresh information surfaced, reminding others that health-related conjecture can actually be harmful. Other fans begged for moderation. Others disregarded those cautions, claiming that public personalities are subject to constant inspection. The argument itself grew as loud as the rumor. The feeling that something had been lost trust, tranquility, and a sense of security in a private relationship, even if nothing